Okay, so this is going to be, I guess, a video continuation of the post that I put on IO groups. You know, regarding that, like I said, the scope seemed to be working fine for a long time. Then a few months ago, started having issues with tracking. PhD2 would just literally go right straight off the map. Polar alignment was fine. I could take this, I could do from this counterweight down position, it would slew to a place, it would do its, 3-point polar alignment to Venina. I would get it down to a very, very good minimal error. And then I would put it back to counterweight, and then I would actually slew it manually somewhere else and tell it to start from here. Do another 3-point just to check my work. Everything usually worked fine. Then a couple of months ago, like I said, everything just started going wonky when I would try to slew to an object, start tracking, take pictures, whatever the case may be. It wouldn't be 10, 15 seconds before PhD just started off tracking. The red light would start flashing. So initially, obviously, I'm thinking maybe I did something to a setting, maybe something happened. I mean, the softwares all have to work together. Sometimes things change without any kind of intervention. As a matter of fact, when I powered this up last time, I had to do a few things in Nina that I never have to generally touch. But anyway, beside that, so I went through that and couldn't find anything. I'd make a change, I'd try this, I'd take it out, I'd try to slew it, nothing would work. It would just immediately start off tracking on either one of the axes, doesn't matter. So, I started checking tightness on everything, all the bolts, all the nuts, everything like that. That all seemed good. Once I'm done with the polar alignments and everything, all these down here would get nice and tight, snugged up, no issues. So then I started checking, anything else that has a fastener on it. Checking the backlash or the lash in the axes. One thing, we can go through is this one here is, it's so good that I can barely tell. I can loosen this up and, the axis on that is just, you need a micrometer to actually notice anything there, right? So I started tearing things apart just to look at it, and that's when I discovered none of the bearings in here or here, along with the thrust bearings, had any grease in it. Now, in some situations, roller skates, other things, they're dry bearings, so I really didn't have any question as to whether or not they needed grease. Now, I didn't put it back together or anything like that at that time, keep using it. But that's when I started going online and just looking at what people did for maintenance on these. And that's when I came across, their YouTube videos saying, you reapply some light grease, some, cold temperature grease, and I realized, well, these were never ever lubricated from the factory. They were dry. And we'll get to that in a minute as well. I'm going to tear it apart here. So the shaft itself, I think it's this one here, if I remember right. It does have some wear marks on the shaft, but to the point where, okay, if this was a car that revved at 9,000 RPM, then I would say it's trash, redo it. But I really don't think that was the issue, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you, what the tolerances should be, because after the fact, and then looking through this, amongst other things we'll get into, is there seems to be a lot of lateral end play. Not this way, not for us, but this way within this axis here. So, you can literally feel a bunch. So, if I just so much as, I don't keep a lot of tension on this, it's pretty loose, and we'll get to another issue here about that in a minute. So I'll just get it to where it's like so. And I've done it with and without this on here. But if I sit here and you can see that. I mean, that is literally play. That's not flexure. That's not anything else but play. Let me see what we're at here. Yeah, even at that range, you could probably see. I got a camcorder. My phone doesn't have enough memory on it to do a video. But literally, this is how much end play, or lateral end play, that this has right here. Which to me, it seems way, way, way excessive. I mean, that's a lot. Now, again, when I tore this apart, I didn't have a set of mics on me or anything like that, which is something I'm actually going to do when I tear it down now, is run a set of micrometers across that shaft, maybe compare it to the bearing. When I saw the wear marks, they weren't galled, they weren't anything like that, where the bearing rests. And I don't think there was enough on that to cause a tolerance issue, because if it was, say this was tight in the beginning and it wore in that much, there'd be metal shavings in the bearings, and there's none of that. I'm just wondering if this shaft was cut properly or whatnot, because again, this, I mean, that is a bunch of play. Now you can tighten the clutch down. That's not gonna change whatever intolerances are in here. Now you can tighten this down, you know, do this. It's still there. You know, I've kind of fought this thing since it was new. So, you know, when it came to some tracking, but I just chalked it up to inexperience, which some of it might be. But that's one of the really big issues that I see here, is how much end play that has. I mean, that is a bunch. So, you know, that in essence, I guess, you know, could affect trekking. I mean, that's a lot. Now, this way, it's got a little. That's how much we're talking about there as far as, that's gear to gear. I can feel that. Maybe that's too much. Maybe you guys recommend that maybe I, you know, tighten up on the worm gear here. But that's gear to gear, tooth to tooth in between them. That's not flexure. That's how much play that I actually have in that backlash. Now this one, I mean, it's not even, can't even tell. Maybe that's too tight. I don't think so. You know, I've worked on robots in the past and everything. At ball screws, worm gear, zero drives, you name it. And I would say this is probably spot on. I mean, this is really, really good. This one here, maybe not so much. Like I said, that is literal. That's not flexure. That's not anything else. I'm going right in between the slot there. So that's how much I have there. And this is how much I have here. That's not flexure either. I can feel the shaft literally hitting the top of the bearing and then coming back down to rest when I do that. Thump, 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 thump. I know you can't see it or hear it, but I can actually hear it making contact on the shaft here. Now, so the other problem about this was balance. You know, maybe I thought maybe I had a bad balance or something like that here. And after watching more videos, I always took this as, I guess, for granted that everything was, I don't want to say perfect coming out of it. So I never had reason to question anything, especially when it came to balancing. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You want a good balance between this. And according to the controller here, when it is slewing or when it is moving and tracking, balance is good, right? But in order to get me this balance, now after watching a lot more videos and not taking anything for granted now, there's an issue with this axis as well. Because, let me demonstrate here. So, I've got this, I never run my clutches tight. I run them as tight as I need them and nothing more, right? So, So we go to balance this, and you know, to look at it on camera, I guess that looks good, but it's not. I mean, there is, from what I see from other videos, there is like a way excessive drag on this for some reason. I mean, way too much. You know, compared to this, now I have this intentionally out of balance right now because I have cables on it. But when I see that, I mean, that literally is like a roller skate bearing. I mean, it just floats really, really smoothly, right? And then subsequent videos that I've seen of these mounts now, this pretty much acts the same way. But technically, with what I know now, there's no way you could properly balance this. So one of the things I did do is I replaced the clutch material in here. When I took the other ones off, they were pretty galled. They looked pretty bad. So I ordered a set of friction, you know, those little neoprene friction plates that you put in here. And then I greased this, of course. I put a light coating of grease on it, you know, nothing excessive, just something to make contact or anything. But I've always had this issue, and I didn't know it was an issue because I really was assuming that it was good out of the box. Okay, and maybe that's my fault to some degree. But compared to other ones I've seen on YouTube, there's just absolutely way too much drag on this. Now I know it's balanced well, but using the controller's balance readout, and it says I'm pretty good, right? According to what Losmandy says in their videos. I'm way within specs. This thing's balanced. Problem is, let me pull this out a little bit more. This will show you how much drag is actually on this system now. So if I take this and I'm in good balance and this is in good shape, I shouldn't really have to move it out that far. This thing should automatically go whip right down. Now it's drifting, but no. Moving it that far should have a significant impact on how that works. Now, it's, again, I can guarantee you it's not over greased. We'll take it apart and I'll show you how it is. But it's not over greased. This is how this was when I bought it new. So I think there's a combination of issues going on that I wasn't aware of until maybe something got so bad that it started messing up my guiding, and that was the key indicator. So again, I just assumed that. Now we could take this, I'm gonna tighten this down right here, because what I can also do, so I got this loosened, and this is the only way that I could actually make sure and verify that I was balanced down the road, was I would have to get it up off it. Now see, if I push in on that and I release it, it goes straight down. So we know that it's well balanced. So we put it back here. Slide that back. And I had to do this over and over and over again just to get to the conclusion that that's pretty much where this weight needs to be. So push on it again. Now it feels like it's a really, really, really smooth roller skate. Tighten that a little bit more, push it out further. See, I mean, that's really, really smooth now. And I would assume that's how it should be. It's never been like that since time of purchase. Now it's sitting there floating. Now once I move it, whatever it's doing, it's gonna sit back into it, and then the drag is gonna pick back up again. And I don't know if that has to do with something in here, or this ring here. I haven't torn that far enough down into it. I've only gone as far as pulling the shaft out on this thing. So maybe there's something else I need to look at on how maybe the bearings are seated, but I don't think so. But again, I will tear this apart, and it's exactly how it was when I bought it. I know there was I guess a post a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away that talked about how these bearings, these thrust bearings, are supposed to be seated or supposed to be in sequence. Now, the way I received it was, like on the back one here, you have the real thick ring first, then you have your spring washer, and then you have your thrust, needle bearing thrust. That's how it arrived. I see no reason why that should be anything but that. Please let me know if it is. I can't find that post anymore about what it is, but I don't think that really has a big bearing on this whole situation here. So again, once I move this, it feels like it seats back into something and a drag comes back. Right now, I mean, that's how it should be in my book, in any situation. Now it just seated back and it drags back. So if I push it out and I get a gap here, as long as I keep that gap, this thing floats. Look at that, beautiful. The way it should be, right? But if I let go of this back here and give that chance to pop back in the way it just did, the drag's back so bad I can't move it. I mean, this clutch is all the way off. This thing is balanced, and I mean, it should have just literally just came all the way over with as much force as I'm putting on it. So I'm thinking that may also have some kind of issue or bearing on how this works. Now, the other part about it is, like I said, sit this way, kind of way down, get it back to where it was. Okay. See, I never run my clutches so tight to where I really got to put a lot of force on that to do it. You know, like this one here, when I would try to balance, I'd actually go off tilt a little bit, and what I would do is I would literally just sit here and go like this and just bring it in a little bit here to where I couldn't move it. And then maybe just another 1/16 of a turn. And then we're done. That's how I always set all the tension on this. But again, this axis here has never been how I've seen other ones in other YouTube videos. It never floats like that. It never has. But then again, like I said, I really didn't think anything was wrong until I started investigating. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take all this off, get the weights off, we're going to pull it off, and then take a look at it. Okay, one thing to note is, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but even now, the drag, I have the clutch completely off. I don't think it should be doing that. I mean, it just seems like it's got too much drag on it. You know, it sticks in one spot. Now, maybe I do have too much grease. Maybe I don't have enough grease. But again, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I mean, so when I push it off of that, it swings like a pendulum. I'm assuming that's the way it should be, as opposed to how it is now. You can see a gap there. I don't know if the camera will pick that up now. That I pushed that out, I pushed out the difference of the clutch. And when it goes back into that, I mean, I don't think you're supposed to install those clutch pads wet. They were dry when they come off. I'm assuming those are supposed to be installed dry for obvious reasons. So let me know if I'm wrong. But again, take this, now that we got it off, and I have a chance to really manipulate it a little bit better. Like I said, I pull this down just for that much. I mean, like I said, the backlash on that, I don't think you could actually get better than that. That is really phenomenal backlash. It would take, this would, if it had excessive backlash, to get it to this point would take a lot of work back and forth to get it just right. And I would say that's as good as it gets. I don't think you're going to get any better than that. But this here, see if I can emphasize it a little bit more with the bearing off, with everything off of it. Oh yeah, there's a lot there. And there's a lot that way as well. Yeah, so it's there. So I'm gonna log off here. I'm gonna take the shaft off, take this off, take them over to the table in my kitchen, and then pull the shafts out so you guys can see what it look like. Okay, we are back. So what I'm going to do is tear this down as I did before. Maybe there are some manufacturing assembly issues or something like that. I don't think so. But starting with this, again, the way it was shipped here is you have your main thick washer, spring washer, and then your thrust plate, your needle bearings, and the thrust plate. So I see no reason for that to be otherwise. With this, we'll pull this off. And I'll just show you how much grease I do have on now. Like I said, I don't think it's an excessive amount, if at all. Maybe it is. There is some grease along the shaft here. Does look like this that I replaced, and I cleaned the daylights out of this too. But this is probably not, I mean, there's no usage out of it except for what you guys saw me when I would swing it back and forth. I cleaned the daylights out of those surfaces, but there's a lot of galling on that now. I don't know if that's an issue or not, but these are the needle bearings. There's one thrust. There's the other thrust. I don't see anything outrageous here. Like I said, it's a medium coat. Maybe I put too much on it. Maybe you guys suggest I take some off. Really don't think so. I don't think it's a big issue. Now, getting to the shaft. I don't know why it's going to kill me. I'm doing this on her kitchen table, but my workbench has 2 tore down engines on them. So we'll clean it off. I mean, really, the only really surfaces that should have any kind of grease on my, admittedly, is the contact surfaces. So we'll clean that off a little bit. I'll try that when I put it back on. But as you can see, this shaft doesn't have, I mean, I've probably got maybe, like I said in the post, 30 hours, let's just call it 50, just to be on the safe side. But you can already see the contact there. But, that's not really so much the fact as I want to measure this to make sure, and I haven't done this before. So I know the counterweight shaft's 1 1/4 or just maybe a few tenths under 1 1/4. I'm assuming these are probably pretty close to it since, it might have been cut from the same steel. So, what we're looking at there, about the same, 1 1/4. But what I did that in the center, of course. I'm gonna lock that in. I'm gonna lock that in. Make sure it didn't deviate. That deviated a little. This is an old stair. I need to get me a new one. Move that around a little bit. Give me a second. It's been a while since I've used this particular one. Okay, there we go. That's better. So what I'm more looking at is to see how much difference, if any, is right there. And if anything, there might be a few tenths. Right? So, no, I won't go over that now. No, I won't go over that. Try that again. Maybe I was off center. There we go. So, just a few tenths under 250. 250, 1 1/4. Yeah, just a few tenths under. Go here. Yeah. I mean, it's the same. There's no variation here, I don't think. No. So there's no wear there, obviously. So, but it is a few tenths under 250. I just calibrated this. Looks to be about 5 tenths under. So I'm assuming these are manufactured here. I don't have a good, I got my friend, I've lent him out all the stuff that I have. But again, there's nothing really here on the surface here. They seem to be seated. I mean, they seem to be seated where they should. I don't really, well, yeah, actually. No, that's the needle bearings. They come up off of that a little bit. I'd have to assume there's maybe a 30-second shoulder here sticking out. This side's probably a little bit tougher to see. But again, I don't know if this is supposed to have play in it, like that, or if that's supposed to be a little bit tighter, or if there's something behind this that I need to look at that perhaps needs attention. But the alarming part is this particular pad is brand new. I mean, look, brand new. And I cleaned the daylights out of both surfaces because of that galling from the old one. I don't know if that'll have a big impact. I'm assuming these are supposed to be done dry because they came off dry too. That, there was nothing really, there's no news about that. So I just installed them exactly the same way that I found them. As found, as left. So put that back on. I did clean the surfaces off of these a little bit. Like I said, I used the same grease. I'm sure it's the same grease that you guys use. It's a low temperature grease. Smells like a heavy grease almost, but I mean, there's not a lot in here. I mean, there's just a film, a light film. There's nothing sticking off of it. I know you can't see that on the camera, but you can see by how much was on here when I pulled this up. I mean, there's a little ring of grease there. I don't think that's so much, but I just now noticed this. I didn't look at this when I was when I was in Carlsbad, but there is a lot of play here on this. Should that be there? I mean, I can see how this opens up. That's where your ring gear is on this. So, is that normal? Should that be tighter? I mean, there's no way of bringing these surfaces any closer unless they were machined improperly, I guess you could say. But I'm just curious if that may be an issue. Is all that play there? That seems like a lot for a precision instrument, but I could be wrong. Should that be pulled apart and lubricated? I know the worm gear should be dry, I know that, but I don't know. I know what's here, obviously, but what's here? You know, should that be lubricated to some degree in there to free this up? So we put it back on. And there, that's a lot of play. That is a bunch of play in that bearing. I would say that's excessive. I mean, that's what you're seeing in the video there. That's how much, even when I get it down to the other bearing, there's still a lot. An awful lot. I think it should be tighter than that for something like this. Like maybe this shaft is machined just a little bit too under. And then it comes to rest. Here are the rollers. So. Then when I lubed it up, this is exactly what I did for a few minutes. You know, to get the grease spread on the bearings. Sound kind of rough. I mean, they are just basic needle bearings though. Sound a little bit rough, so we'll put this one back together. Again, this is how it came apart. This is how it came apart. Thrust, needle, thrust, spring, and then final washer. That's how it came from the factory. So that's how it's going back together. I see, again, this is no reason why it should be any different, or should be different than that. That makes logical sense. Again, like I said, I know there was a post a long time ago about, now again, I mean, there's just a crazy amount of drag on it now. I had to clutch on a little bit. But actually, when I spin this, there's tight spots and then loose. Tight, loose, tight, loose. Like maybe that shaft's, I can't check roundness on it. But there is tight and loose when I turn that. So we're done with that one. We'll deal with this one. I mean, that one spins like a gyro. Same thing. You got your main cap, of course. I'm going to take off. I did lube these up a little bit, and the inner of that. Those mating surfaces, the die must have been getting kind of wore out there because that shaft's got a lot of play in it. Take this off, pull this out. Here's the other part I was concerned about, was if you look at this plate, and it probably doesn't use it, you know, it gets as much play as that friction disc does, but there's nowhere near the amount of galling on this. I mean, that looked like a record player. This one's not bad at all. And like I said, I cleaned both surfaces. You can see where the contact patches are. This is pretty dry here. And through here, you can see where the contact patches are. It's minimal. Like I said, now let's just see. I haven't changed this at all. See how tight that is. That's looser. Actually, no, let me see, I'll make sure here. I backed off a little bit, so. It's the same. No, actually, this is a little bit over what the last shaft was. Yeah. This one is about 2/10 under. That one's about 5/10 under. So I'll measure it here at the bearing contact. Yeah, same. So that shaft is actually slightly under. Yeah. Yep. That one's a few tenths smaller than this one. A little bit shorter. Not much. Actually, probably about 2/10 or 2.5 tenths. So it is a little bit undersized. I'm assuming the bearing housings and everything like that are the same. But as you see, I mean, there's not a lot of wear on this. I never thought there would be. But the concerning part is how much play that has in it, up and down, laterally, and whatnot. Like I said, I don't have a lot of issues with this, but there's tattletales on this one. One of them being the friction disc. I mean, they're both the same age. They probably got about the same amount of rotation on them because I've been trying to troubleshoot these things. You know, and I don't try to turn them when they're over tight. You know, it's just snug and then a little bit more. But that friction disc has a bunch more wear on it than this does for some reason. But I don't have a lot of issues with this axis. It seems to be revolving around that one. So we'll put this back on. Yeah, I mean, even when it's sitting like this, it feels smoother. But let me know if that's incorrect with the thrust. Like I said, I really don't think it is. You know, I used the proper grease again. Like I said, this it's the same low temp grease, but this one here has a lot. But I mean, that I just can't get over how good that backlash is. Sitting here doing that this way, I mean wow. If I can get things out and I can get my pec set up and running, if that was the same way, man, I mean, it wouldn't take long for it to make any kind of, I mean, there's just, you literally, you can't see it move. The only way I know that there's backlash is that I can feel it. And it's not too tight. I mean, I would say that's absolutely perfect. I mean, that's really good. But now, moving on to this one again, just to recap. Should I tear it down into this? Should I not? This one here, I mean, there's just, that is just, let me loosen that up. Okay. It may be a little better. Maybe I did have too much grease on, but there's no contact to the shaft here. It's all hollow. So the extra grease on the shaft shouldn't have any bearing, no pun intended, on this. It shouldn't have any effect. Let's put it this way. But what does concern me is how much slop was here in that ring when we were doing this. Maybe there should be some kind of, should there be a spacer behind this to get that off of there so this frees a little bit, that it will float a little bit better, or in between here maybe? I don't know. But this isn't bad right now. This is actually very, very good. And as you can see, I didn't do anything right or wrong, but you know, if I can get that kind of work out of it, with the weight on it, I think the problem's solved. I don't know what I did. All I did was take some grease off of it, but like I said, I don't think the grease was excessive. But as soon as I put a little bit of weight on this way, or laterally, this way as in the weight hanging off of it, then it just, I mean, if I pull down on it a little bit, I mean, it just tightens up. It tightens up like I've put some turns on this. And again, that, so you can probably hear that. Probably can't see it now because the overall length is so small, but that is just, to me, that's too much. That would cause problems, especially on deep sky stuff. You know, you track it one way and then it goes to do another, your axis change, and then this goes off. So, yeah, there's enough here, that much I do know, to where if this did shift after final polar alignment and you're doing some deep sky stuff, there's enough there to where it would probably cause you to go off scale. But again, I wasn't looking for that at the time. I was just, you know, dealing with the issue of what I found with the bearings and everything like that, so. But no, so I'm gonna put her back together. You tell me what you guys think. I just wanted to do this too. Maybe Paul and them can see this before I spend, because I know shipping on these things is just an incredibly insane amount. So maybe if they see something that I did wrong or am doing wrong, or maybe fixable here before I spend that incredible amount of money to have this heavy stuff shipped out there, please, let me know. I'm not made of money. I'm not a rich guy by any means. And if I can save a little bit of time and effort, it would, definitely, and money, it would be very much appreciated. Thanks, guys. Okay, one more thing, just everything's back together. Just, I guess more for my curiosity. The way I've always done this is, obviously this is moved. I start it up, cold start, and I'll always go, especially after I move it, I go to park just to check my position, counterweight down. Okay, thinks it's a counterweight down. Come over here, go ahead and get my bubbles lined up as they are. And I want to see if this may be any kind of indication as well. I'm going to salute to the sun, which is going to bring it, it's sitting right over here now. It's like 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. So it's going to slow a little bit, but I want you to listen to it, because you hear a little bit of ring, 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 ring. And usually, I guess that's either attributed to a balance issue or something like that, but like I said, this is balanced. It's balanced as good as I can get it with the condition that it's in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow to that. Sun. See what you guys think on sound wise. Probably should go to zenith. That might be a little bit better indication. Let me pull that back. There it is. Started, is that normal? Once it starts getting its moment of inertia a little bit further over. Let me go back. I don't know if there's a zenith on this. Go to park. Park at zenith. Okay, so yeah. So what I'll do is I'll run it to that and then run it back. Tell me what y'all think. So I'm going to go the other way. Hear it? Now it's loading up a little bit. And then it evens out. Okay, now there, got a zenith there. So now we're going to pull it back up. And you'll hear both motors in conjunction. Is that normal? And like I said, it's balanced as good as I can get it to this point. This is pretty well balanced now with the cords on it. I mean, you're not going to get it perfect because the cords shift and everything like that, but that's nominal. So let's park it. Counterweight down. And we're back. Just some thoughts on that. Maybe that might reveal something that I may be overlooking or don't really know for sure. So that should take care of everything that I'm dealing with here. Thanks.